Yo, how's it going everybody? It's Sketch and welcome back to the channel. And today is the day, folks. Here we are again. Another year, another Call of Duty, and this time we have Black Ops Cold War, developed by Treyarch and Sledgehammer Studios, published by Activision. Which, I'll be honest, I was hoping this would at least be better than last year's Modern Warfare reboot, which, as you might remember, garnered mixed reviews amongst critics and the community. Is it any different this time around? Well, yes, some things have changed, but some things have also taken a hit with the sped up development cycle, along with hurdles thrown in front of the project as a whole. But before we bang on too much more about all that, let's break this down real quick. Story-wise, this is a continuation of the original Black Ops set in the Cold War era. You play as the silent character Bell and will unravel the mystery through a short but fun campaign, which actually has a Mass Effect Light style dialogue tree here in spots that will shape the outcome of your run. Most of the familiar cast of characters from the original Black Ops are here, with a few new faces to guide you through the 15 missions that will roughly take about 3 to 5 hours. And with multiple endings and some optional missions to influence the narrative, the campaign delivers some high-octane action and some Spies Like Us moments thrown in for good measure, and overall the campaign's decent. By design, it's meant to be played several times to see all the possible scenarios, but for most, probably one time is going to be enough unless you're going for achievements. Graphics-wise, this is where things start to get a bit interesting. Running on a modified engine, this has a much darker palette compared to Black Ops 3 or 4, which were bordering on extreme with the brightness and saturation. This entry has a lot more contrast and is muted compared to the former entries. There are parts of the game that really do look good, and there's some set pieces that have some fantastic effects work, but the issues start to pop up in some unexpected places at first, the main one being frame dip. There is frame dip in a lot of sections in Cold War, and you'll notice it at first in the opening cinematic, where across several consoles, frame drop during cutscenes and load screens is a very prevalent issue. While the campaign itself doesn't have much noticeable frame dip while playing it, basically everything else does. The multiplayer load screens do the same thing, and even at times the textures just drop altogether. Here's another one. Texture pop-in and screen tearing is also some of the more common things you'll see here, and it's way more common than it should be for a AAA release. And a lot of spots overall are going to look broken as a result, unfortunately. The multiplayer itself also has issues with texture pop-in and glitches. The multiplayer maps will often have issues of textures loading in matches and during certain animations that are still currently bugged, which has been an issue since the beta. And it's a bug that presents itself way more often than it should, and also the one that actually gets me the most is the post-match screens. Like, pretty much all the text and all the icons, they all glitch out still, and that's something that's been happening since the beta, and the fact that it hasn't been addressed, it's kind of a bummer. Gameplay wise, is a shoot by numbers affair, and at a base it has some things working for it, definitely, with less emphasis on camping and slightly more fast-paced gameplays, which what the team was after in execution. But you'll see a lot of things, especially a lot of the same problems that Modern Warfare 2019 had, even though they're slightly different. The doors and weapon mounting are gone, but so is the overall smoother experience that Modern Warfare 19 had, which is something I never thought I'd say. The multiplayer is still really buggy, and at times the netcode is flat out, it's fucking awful. I've never seen more gunfights that were inconsistent until playing this game. Maps overall are not the best, but also not quite the worst either. But that Miami map, however, is the worst map in the game by far, and due to its low visibility and excess of rooftops and balconies. Also, the camo challenges this time around has more or less merged the Modern Warfare and Black Ops systems together, with gun leveling and attachments, and challenges opening up as your weapon level does. 53 levels in total per weapon, instead of doing 100 headshots and then the rest of the challenges. Now challenges unlock every 10 levels, which needlessly pads the time spent required to complete them. It's essentially the Modern Warfare 3 system progression of weapons all over again, just minus the resets. And also, spoiler alert, most attachments border on useless and feel like padding. The big thing here is still the skill-based matchmaking, which during the beta I didn't have much of an issue with, but when the retail dropped, the floodgates opened up with wannabe MLG sweats, and matches rarely were blowouts, but instead being heavily competitive, in which if that's what you're about, this might be the game for you. But there are exploits and ways around the matchmaking, but it's definitely heavier than the beta was. And after a few good matches, the game will literally start to pummel you until you do so poorly for such a prolonged amount of time that it will maybe put you back in some easy lobbies. In short, the days of drinking a beer or two and playing TDM, those days are dwindling, man. Some of the more surprising bugs, however, are the ones that I've seen on Xbox personally now at this point, but also the analysis spread to other consoles as well, where the game is just randomly crashing and also turning the console off altogether. And so far now, this actually has bricked some consoles, but this game has literally shut my console down 8 times now, which is a cause for concern. An even more interesting bug that is the cross booting from Modern Warfare 19 using Warzone, rendering some Modern Warfare discs at times unreadable, and directing players to the online store to buy it again. This glitch also at times will even boot Cold War from the Modern Warfare disc, which also makes no sense. Which again is why I ask, if a feature doesn't work properly, then why not remove it until it does? Though the main offender here is the package's overall light on content again, and continues to get chopped up and then drip fed back to players over time, more and more each year. And this being a full price release, that's bullshit, even if the DLC is quote unquote free now. The pattern that COD games are shipping with less each installment should be an indication to hold them off a bit longer and give people the content that they're paying for, especially if they're getting the next gen versions, which are now $10 more. Sound wise is also a mixed bag, with its campaign having some good voice acting and Foley art aside from the guns. The audio as far as the combat has been downgraded compared to Modern Warfare 19, which actually had a really good sound engine. Weapons here just sound puny by comparison to last year's entry as well as previous Black Ops entries too. The music overall, it's okay for the bits that are there, like licensed or original, but also the dreaded loud footsteps are here again. While not quite as loud as Modern Warfare 19, still loud enough to where Ninja is a crutch perk and is necessary to not getting laser beamed around every corner. Overall, Black Ops Cold War is only a slight, and I do mean slight, improvement over last year's Modern Warfare. While it's a bit more fun to play since you can move around again, there's just so much that's wrong or incomplete with this game as a whole. It just destroys the experience. I'm not saying it's all bad here, but buyer beware. There's some stuff in this game that's going to frustrate you, and there's some stuff in here too that will shave off a fair bit of the enjoyment you might have with this, considering it has so many bugs and also just the obvious lack of content. There's fun to be had, sure, but you have to be patient until that fun presents itself, hopefully with more content of quality to look forward to down the road. Cold War gets a 6.5 out of 10, and I would wait until this goes on sale at retailers, and I would not suggest paying full price for this under any circumstance as it is currently. This may be the time for the franchise to dial back the annual releases, since each entry just goes down with overall quality, but at its base, there's something there. It just needs a lot more polish. And I thank you again if you checked out this video and made it to this point. If you found these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you can use this as a resource. Check back often. We'll have more video commentaries and reviews coming up in the future, but until then, stay safe out there, take it easy, and I'll see you on the next one.